The Lateen culture was a European Iron Age culture named after the archaeological site of Lateen on the north side of Lake Neuchâtel in Switzerland, where a rich cache of artifacts was discovered by Hans Le Kopp in 1857. Lateen culture developed and flourished during the late Iron Age in Belgium, eastern France, Switzerland, Austria, southern Germany, the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, Slovenia, Hungary and Romania. To the north extended the contemporary Gestorf culture of northern Germany. Lateen culture developed out of the early Iron Age Hallstatt culture without any definite cultural break, under the impetus of considerable Mediterranean influence from the culture of Golaseca, the Greeks in pre-Roman Gaul and the Etruscans. Barry Cunliffe notes localization of Lateen culture during the 5th century when there arose two zones of power and innovation: a Marne-Moselle zone in the west with trading links to the Po Valley via the Central Alpine passes and the Golaseca culture, and a Bohemian zone in the east with separate links to the Adriatic via the Eastern Alpine routes and the Venetic culture. A shift of settlement centers took place in the 4th century. Lateen cultural material appeared over a large area, including parts of Ireland and Great Britain, northern Spain, northern central Italy, Burgundy, and Austria. Elaborate burials also reveal a wide network of trade. In Vix, France, an elite woman of the 6th century BCE was buried with a very large bronze cauldron made in Greece. Exports from Lateen cultural areas to the Mediterranean cultures were based on salt, tin and copper, amber, wool and leather, furs and gold. Lateen Homeland. Though there is no agreement on the precise region in which Lateen culture first developed, there is a broad consensus that the center of the culture lay on the northwest edges of Hallstatt culture, north of the Alps, within the region between the valleys of the Marne and Moselle in the west and modern Bavaria and Austria in the east. In 1994, a prototypical ensemble of elite grave sites of the early 5th century BCE was excavated at Glaberg in Hesse, northeast of Frankfurt am Main, in a region that had formerly been considered peripheral to the Lateen sphere. From their homeland, Lateen groups expanded in the 4th century to Hispania, Italy, the Balkans, and even as far as Asia Minor. In the course of several major migrations, in the 4th century BCE, a Gallic army led by Brennus reached Rome and took the city. In the 3rd century BCE, Gallic bands entered Greece and threatened the Oracle of Delphi, while another band settled Galatia in Asia Minor. Periodization. Extensive contacts through trade are recognized in foreign objects deposited in elite burials. Stylistic influences on Lateen material culture can be recognized in Etruscan, Italic, Greek, Dacian and Scythian sources. Datable Greek pottery at Lateen sites analyzed employing dendrochronology and thermoluminescence help provide date ranges in an absolute chronology. At some Lateen sites, as with many archaeological periods, Lateen history was originally divided into early, middle, and late stages, with the Roman occupation effectively driving the culture underground and ending its development. A broad cultural unity was not paralleled by overarching social-political unifying structures, and the extent to which the material culture can be linguistically linked is debated. Ethnology. Our knowledge of this cultural area derives from three sources: from archaeological evidence, from Greek and Latin literary evidence, and more controversially, from ethnographical evidence suggesting some Lateen artistic and cultural survivals in traditionally Celtic regions of far western Europe. Some of the societies that are archaeologically identified with Lateen material culture were identified by Greek and Roman authors from the 5th century onwards as Celtois and Galli. Herodotus correctly placed Celtois at the source of the Ister, Danube, in the heartland of Lateen material culture. The Ister flows right across Europe, rising in the country of the Celts, whom however, apparently misunderstanding his source, He places farthest to the west of any people of Europe, whether the usage of classical sources means that the whole of Lateen culture can be attributed to a unified Celtic people is difficult to assess. Archaeologists have repeatedly concluded that language, material culture, and political affiliation do not necessarily run parallel. Frey notes that in the 5th century, burial customs in the Celtic world were not uniform, rather, localized groups had their own beliefs, which, in consequence, also gave rise to distinct artistic expressions. Material culture. Lateen metalwork in bronze, iron and gold, developing technologically out of Hallstatt culture, is stylistically characterized by inscribed and inlaid intricate spirals and interlace on fine bronze vessels, helmets and shields, horse trappings and elite jewelry, especially the neck rings called torques and elaborate clasps called fibulae. It is characterized by elegant, stylized curvilinear animal and vegetal forms, allied with the Hallstatt traditions of geometric patterning. The early style of Lateen art and culture mainly featured static, geometric decoration, while the transition to the developed style constituted a shift to movement-based forms, such as triskelies. Some subsets within the developed style contain more specific design trends, such as the recurrent serpentine scroll of the Waldalgesheim style. Initially, Lateen folk lived in open settlements that were dominated by the chieftains or towering hill forts. The development of towns, oppida, appears in mid-Lateen culture. Lateen dwellings were carpenter-built rather than of masonry. Lateen peoples also dug ritual shafts, in which votive offerings and even human sacrifices were cast. Severed heads appear to have held great power and were often represented in carvings. Burial sites included weapons, carts, and both elite and household goods, evoking a strong continuity with an afterlife. Discovery. Lateen is a village on the northern shore of Lake Neuchâtel, Switzerland. It is both an archaeological site and the eponymous site for the late Iron Age Lateen culture, also spelt Latin or Lateen. In 1857, prolonged drought lowered the waters of the lake by about 2 meters. On the northernmost tip of the lake, between the river Thiel and a point south of the village of Maronepania, Hansley Kopp, looking for antiquities for Colonel Frederick Schwab, discovered several rows of wooden piles that still reached about 50 centimeters into the water. From among these, Kopp collected about 40 iron swords. The Swiss archaeologist Ferdinand Keller published his findings in 1868 in his influential first report on the Swiss pile dwellings. In 1863 he interpreted the remains as a Celtic village built on piles. Edouard Deser, a geologist from Neuchâtel, started excavations on the lake shore soon afterwards. He interpreted the site as an armory, erected on piles over the lake and later destroyed by enemy action. Another interpretation, accounting for the presence of cast iron swords that had not been sharpened, was of a site of sacrifices. With the first systematic lowering of the Swiss lakes from 1868 to 1883, the site fell completely dry. In 1880, Emil Vuger, a teacher from Maronepania, uncovered the wooden remains of 2 bridges originally over 100 meters long, that crossed the Little Thiel River, and the remains of 5 houses on the shore. After Vuger had finished, Borel, curator of the Maron Museum, began to excavate as well. In 1885, the canton asked the Société d'Histoire of Neuchâtel to continue the excavations, the results of which were published by Vuger in the same year. All in all, over 2,500 objects, mainly made from metal, have been excavated in Lateen. Weapons predominate, there being 166 swords, 270 lance heads, and 22 shield bosses, along with 385 brooches, tools, and parts of chariots. Numerous human and animal bones were found as well. Interpretations of the site vary. Some scholars believe the bridge was destroyed by high water, while others see it as a place of sacrifice after a successful battle. An exhibition marking the 150th anniversary of the discovery of the Lateen site was launched in June 2007 at the Musée Schwab in Bienne, Switzerland. It was scheduled to move to Zurich in 2008 and the Montbévry in Burgundy in 2009. Sites. Some sites are artifacts. Some outstanding Lateen artifacts are the Strettweg cart, found in southeast Austria, a four-wheeled cart with a goddess, riders with axes and shields, attendants and stags, a woman in Vix buried with an 1100-litre bronze crater, the largest ever found. The silver Gundestrup cauldron, found ritually broken in a peat bog near Gundestrup, Denmark, but probably made near the Black Sea, perhaps in Thrace. Battersea shield, found in the Thames, made of bronze with red enamel. Whittam shield, Chertsey shield, Toro stone, in Galway, Ireland. Chariot burial found at Waldalgesheim, Bad Kreuznach, Germany, late 4th century BCE. Chariot burial found at La Gorge Mate, a life-sized sculpture of a warrior that accompanied the Glabig burials. A gold and bronze model of an oak tree found at the Oppidum of Manching. Norwich steel,